The Laundering. Case 13. The Verdict. 12 cases of evidence. 1 verdict. Where do we start?
With the discipline. The 12 preceding cases observed 1. The architecture is the subject. The people inside it are not. Case 01 did not accuse the chair of the Justice Studies Department of bad faith. It described a structural property, a department whose flagship degree is co-governed by the agencies whose public trust survey it is hired to validate. Case 09 did not accuse a coroner of misconduct. It described 3 procedural exits from 1 architecture. Case 10 did not accuse Boskin of fraud. It described a measurement instrument whose revisions over 48 years have moved in 1 direction.
And Case 11. And Case 12.
Case 11 did not accuse Paul Volcker of malice. It described a monetary policy whose distributional consequences are on the public ledger. Case 12 did not accuse the AMA, Purdue, the provincial colleges, or the CMA of conspiracy. It described a credential whose rental price is whatever the renter can pay.
So what does Case 13 add?
A synthesis. A reader who has worked through 12 cases of structural analysis is entitled by the end to a synthesis. The synthesis is not a 13th structural case. It is the verdict the 12 structural cases make available. The architecture documented across cases 01 through 12 is the conduct of class war by other means. The evidence is the architecture's own bookkeeping. That is, the verdict of Case 13.
Section 1. The Docket. Walk the 12 cases in 1 sentence each.
Case 01, the Regina Circuit. A municipal police service co-governed with a university methodology department. Case 02, the Prairie Survey Industry. The same instrument run by 4 prairie capitals, distinguishing only the academic layer above it. Case 07, the Oversight Cycle. 3 federal inquiries over 30 years that did not adjudicate the substantive question they were constituted to ask.
The Hospital Cases.
Case 08, the 5-day inquest. A coroner's procedure that distributed a hospital floor protocol question into 20 training recommendations. Case 09, cross-jurisdiction. 3 coroner's inquests across 3 provinces, 3 procedural exits from 1 architecture. Sinclair, Echequan, Uco.
The Macro Cases.
Case 10, the Index. A transnational price index revised in 1 direction for 48 years. Case 11, the Decoupling. A half-century severance of productivity from pay. $50 trillion in upward redistribution by Rand's own arithmetic. Case 12, the White Coat. The medical credential rented across 4 episodes: tobacco, opioids, the operational continuation of harm to Indigenous and Black patients in Canadian healthcare, and the withdrawal of COVID protections.
12 cases, different institutions. 1 pattern.
The structural property is the same in each. The architecture produces a legitimacy artifact. The legitimacy artifact circulates as if it were the substantive answer to the substantive question. The substantive question goes unanswered. The architecture moves to the next cycle. 12 cases of this. 1 direction.
Section 2. The Asymmetry. 8 differences of access. What are they?
Each of the 12 cases documents at least 1 asymmetry of access between the population the architecture serves and the population it processes. 8. In summary. 1. Methodological consent. The university owns the methodology. The over-policed do not. 2. Procedural narrowing. The inquest sets the scope. The bereaved family does not. 3. Index revision. The Bureau of Labor Statistics defines the basket. The renter does not.
4 through 6.
4. Asset price appreciation. The asset-holding class participates. The wage-earning class does not hold the asset. 5. Credentialed silence. The college decides what counts as misconduct. The patient does not. 6. Archival access. The institution holds the documents. The journalist files Freedom of Information requests for 30% of them on a 4-year delay.
7 and 8.
7. Prosecutorial threshold. The Crown decides what is worth charging. The complainant does not. 8. The legal capacity to be heard. The corporation has lawyers on retainer. The individual does not. 8 asymmetries. Each is a difference of access. Each access difference is, on the public record, a class difference. The architecture does not require its operators to declare any of this. It requires only that the operators have access to one side of each asymmetry, and the operator's subjects have access to the other.
Section 3. The verdict. State it plainly.
The architecture documented across cases 01 through 12 is the conduct of class war by other means. The other means are the methodological consent of the university, the procedural narrowing of the inquest, the technical defensibility of the index revision, the asset price appreciation of the post-1971 monetary regime, and the credentialed silence of the self-regulating profession. The party conducting the war is, in each case, the class with access to the architecture's methodology. The party against whom it is conducted is, in each case, the class without that access.
The defenders will call that ideological.
The framing is not ideological. The asymmetries are documented. The $50 trillion transfer is documented. The CPI methodology is documented. The college complaints are documented. The inquest scope rulings are documented. The OxyContin sales training is documented. The undercounted respondent is documented. What is described as ideology, when the description is named in the antagonism's own terms, is the absence of an ideology that would describe it otherwise.
Where does that leave the verdict?
The verdict is that the architecture is class war by other means. The evidence is 12 cases. The court is the public record. The sentence has not yet been pronounced.
Section 4. The form. What kind of class war is this?
Not the class war of the 1919 Winnipeg General Strike, in which the lines were drawn in the street and the mounted police rode in with bats and rifles. Not the class war of the 1945 Ford Windsor strike, in which the lines were drawn at the factory gate and the Rand formula was its settlement. Not the class war of the 1981 Patco firings, in which the lines were drawn at the air traffic control tower and the federal government's posture was declared in one mass termination. Each of those is a recognizable class confrontation, visible, named, with parties to a labor dispute on the public record.
And this?
This is the class war of the technocratic period. The lines are drawn inside the methodology of a published index, the scope ruling of a coroner's inquest, the citation chain of a 5-sentence letter to the editor, the operational policy of a provincial health authority, and the consensus venue of a transnational measurement working group. The casualties are diffused across millions of households who experience the loss as a personal financial problem, a private medical event, a tragedy of one family, a difficult day in an emergency room.
The diffusion is the strategy.
A class war whose casualties cannot identify themselves as casualties of the same war, is a class war that does not appear in the official record to be a war. The Marxist tradition would call this a shift from open to structural class antagonism. The institutional economics tradition would call it regulatory capture of the measurement function. The Cantillon effect tradition would call it the predictable behavior of a credit system in which the first recipients of newly created money write the rules by which the resulting inflation is recorded. 3 traditions, 3 vocabularies, 1 finding.
Section 5. The frame. Laundering and class war are the same finding said 2 ways.
Laundering describes how the antagonism is concealed. Class war describes whose antagonism is being concealed. The 2 vocabularies do not contradict each other, they name the same architecture from different sides. The laundering vocabulary, placement, layering, integration, was the analytical apparatus of cases 01 through 12. The class war vocabulary is the verdict on what the apparatus, taken in aggregate, has been laundering.
And the relationship between them?
The dirty asset that requires laundering in every one of the 12 cases is an antagonism that cannot be openly admitted. In case 01, it is a declining trust reading the police service cannot publish. In case 09, it is the racism in Canadian healthcare the provincial colleges cannot adjudicate. In case 10, it is the over-indexation the Treasury cannot honour. In case 11, it is the $50 trillion transfer the political class cannot defend. In case 12, it is the credentialed silence the profession cannot break. Each dirty asset is a class antagonism. Each laundering operation is the concealment of that antagonism. The same finding, 2 vocabularies.
Section 6. The sentence. What has not yet been pronounced.
The verdict is on the public record. The sentence is not. A sentence is what a court orders after the verdict is rendered. The court is the public record. The jury is the population the architecture has been processing. What that jury orders is, at present, not yet specified. The laundering does not specify it. The series' editorial discipline has been to describe what the architecture is, and to leave the question of what to do about it to the readers and the population whose recognition of themselves as casualties is the precondition for any sentence.
So case 13 stops at the verdict.
Stops at the verdict, names the architecture, leaves the sentence to the parties with standing to pronounce it. That is the discipline. That is what 12 cases of structural analysis make available, and where structural analysis ends and political organizing begins.
Section 7. Close. What this case is and what it isn't.
3 things this case is not. 1. This is not a call to violence. The architecture's operators are the operators of an architecture, not the personal authors of its outcomes. The framing recognizes them as that and no more. 2. This is not a partisan claim. The architecture has been built by both major Canadian parties, by both major US parties, and by the operational defaults of institutions that do not align with any party. 3. This is not personal. The verdict is on the architecture, not on any named individual operating inside it.
And what it is.
A structural reading of 12 cases of evidence. The reading is, at every point, sourced to the architecture's own bookkeeping. The asymmetries are documented. The $50 trillion figure is RAND's. The CPI revision direction is BLS and Statistics Canada's. The labour share trajectory is BLS's. The inquest scope rulings are Manitoba, Quebec, and Saskatchewan's. The credentialed silence is the college's own. The verdict assembles primary source claims that the architecture itself has, in 12 cases, made unavoidable.
All right, leave us with the line.
12 cases, 1 verdict. The architecture is class war by other means. The court is the public record. The sentence has not yet been pronounced.
Both statements are true.
Their relationship is the story.
That brings us to the close of Case 13, the verdict, from The Laundering, an investigative series on reputation laundering through Canadian and U.S. institutions. The verdict is the synthesis of Volume 1. Volume 2 opens at the institutions that decide what counts as legitimate. Cases 01, 02, and 03 of Volume 2 are filed. The architecture is the subject. Thank you for listening. Section 8. Open Call. Corrections and additions especially welcomed.
From readers who reject the class war framing on substantive grounds. From readers who accept it but want the evidence tightened. From readers whose own work has documented the same architecture in jurisdictions or substrates the 12 cases did not cover. From sector practitioners who can correct the operational descriptions. From the Indigenous, disabled, immunocompromised, and racialized communities whose experience is the principal corrective to anything the series has miscarried.
The framing is contestable.
The class war framing is, in this case, the editor's verdict on the cumulative evidence of the 12 cases. It is the verdict that, in our reading, the evidence supports. We accept that other readings of the same evidence are possible, and we are interested in hearing them. Where corrections are warranted, they will be made and dated on the page. Where additions are warranted, they will be incorporated. Contact circuit@felineunion.org. Signal on request. Public document repositories preferred. Confidentiality respected. No paywall, no advertising.